parlayed that into the JP Morgan Finance training program and was a product manager for the first credit derivatives, which brought the whole economy down in 2008. But have had a lot of product management roles, both in tech and in finance. My last role in the U.S. was working for an AI firm in Redwood City. Recently, I moved down to Mexico to pursue opportunities here, mostly in software development, putting teams together to work for companies in Silicon Valley. But also recently got into medical supplies given COVID and disruptions of supply chains. So a lot of different areas in product management.
Awesome. Mallory, you want to go next?
Hey, I am Mallory, and I've been, I guess, pretty much retired from the Lions for many years. I haven't been around for a while, but I was very, very involved a few years ago, playing as well as organizing and producing the White Collar Boxing events. So if you ever attended or participated, I hope you had a great time doing that. I am professionally, I'm formerly a marketing professional. I worked in the nonprofit sector for about 5 years, producing fundraising events for Play Rugby USA, which might be a charity that some of you are familiar with. And when I left Play Rugby, I transitioned to an experiential marketing professional role with WeWork. I was there for about a year and decided to pursue my interest in technology. And at that time, WeWork had purchased the Flatiron School, which is a boot camp program. And so I ended up attending Flatiron School and graduated their full stack program last summer. So I am now a technologist, which is wild and cool. And I've been working, I am full stack, that's sort of my educational background, but I have been focused on front-end web development. And I'm currently freelancing because unfortunately my very, very small startup couldn't survive COVID. So I am doing a lot of freelance right now. So yeah, happy to talk about all
that. Dave?
Sure, Dave. I retired from the Lions probably just a couple of years ago, hung on too long, but I was a lock for a while. Presently work for a company called Intent, who do machine learning models applied to customer acquisition, mostly through media, Google and Facebook and the like, things like that, but it's a nice little intersection of data science, technology, media. I'm a product manager with those guys. I worked for a while in the first part of my career as a data analyst, and then maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I made the jump from data analyst to product manager, which I've really been enjoying. But so I know a little bit about making that kind of transition. And yeah, that's about it.
Great, thanks. Margot?
Hello, my name is Margot. I played with the Lions from 2012 to 2017. Let's see. So professionally, I'm a software engineer. I am also a self-taught person. I went to a place called the Recurse Center, which is also in New York City. And it's a self-directed, teach yourself how to code place, but it's pretty neat. So I might talk more about that later. I started my career at Venmo, which has its headquarters in the West Village. And then in 2017, I moved out to California to work at Google on the search team. So I was there for about 2 years until the beginning of this year, when I decided in January it was a great time to quit my job. And just a couple weeks ago, I started a new position at a company called Indigo Agriculture, which is in the niche field of ag tech, if anyone has questions about that.
Thanks, Margo. Coma?
Hi, I'm Coma. I coach the men's 15s and 7s teams, and I'm eagerly waiting for this COVID thing to go away so we can actually get back out there and do all of the rugby things. And my professional life, I am the head of curriculum at Code Academy, which is an online self-paced, I would say, opportunity for people to gain instruction in web development, data science, computer science. And the mission of the company that founded it about 9 years ago was to bring technology and coding education to anybody who wants it. So we really emphasize that if people want to learn technical concepts, if they want to learn coding, if they want to learn a language, that it's for everybody, and nobody should feel like it's a barrier to learning about technology and coding and programming and how they could make it relevant to themselves. So we really pride ourselves on being able to reach out to multiple types of learners and learners who may not have thought that that was something that they could do, and helping them be able to do it. So I've been at Code Academy for about 1.5 years. Most of my prior professional experiences have been technology adjacent. I worked at Morgan Stanley in the wealth management team. I was an executive director and had a team of folks where we delivered a lot of different types of changes to systems and processes and technologies based in the front office. Spent some time consulting at EY and at Booz Allen Hamilton. And all of those roles, I've been working with technologists and with programmers. So I've always been in and around it. And now I'm really excited to help people learn it. So I'm really excited to talk about that.
Thanks. Bree?
Hi everyone, I'm Bree Augenwright. I am currently a master software engineer at Capital One. I also work part-time with Women Who Code as a leadership fellow. My experience in tech has been kind of all over the place. I've worn many hats, doing a little bit of front end, back end API work, but the breadth of my experience and what I label myself as is a back end and infrastructure or DevOps engineer, doing a lot of cloud-based work and architecting and building the back end components to our card platform and the systems that power our business. I received my degree from Virginia Tech in computer science and went straight into Capital One, and I've been working there as an engineer full time. I am not on the Alliance team, but I am a fan.
We appreciate you anyway. Rob?
Sure. I'm Rob O'Callaghan. I've been with the Lions on and off for about 7 or 8 years, maybe. I'm a director of data science in a startup called Order Group, and manage a team of data scientists and data engineers there. My background is originally academically in civil engineering and structural engineering, so then made the jump, usually just using online resources to the position I'm in now. And I've worked in a few startups and then management consulting in the data science field before that.
Thanks, Rob. And last but not least, Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve. My background is originally in computer engineering, but I recently received a master's degree in quantitative finance, focusing in mostly derivatives research. I currently work at Bank of America and have for a little under a year now on a regulatory reporting team. And so I was both in the QA space and now a business analyst. And I might be moving into product management soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. So we're going to start our structured Q&A portion right now. We're going to bring it back to basics with the first question. As someone who's not at all in the technology space, we're hearing a lot coding, engineering, data science, all kind of under the umbrella of technology. And so I was wondering, my first question really is, what are kind of the different areas, and are they interrelated? Are they the same thing? So kind of coding, technology, data science. I'm looking for Coma, Jean, and Rob to help me break that down. Go ahead, any of you.
I think that, at Code Academy, when we're trying to introduce concepts to our learners who are sort of perhaps are afraid, perhaps somebody told them, oh, computer science isn't for you, or programming is hard, we really try to introduce a concept of you actually kind of intuitively understand what this is. This is just a new way for you to be able to express it, in the sense that, we tell them, hey, programming is just giving a set of instructions to a computer to do a thing. And coding is translating that into language a computer can understand so that computer can actually do the thing. And I know that sounds very elemental and basic, but we try to break things down in a way that people can intuitively understand and learn by example so that it doesn't seem like it's a foreign concept. It's something that bit by bit we can introduce those concepts and then solidify those concepts in a particular path, in a particular language, in a particular discipline. So they really understand that it's all around us. It's not something that they haven't encountered, but it is really something that is at its very core. You're trying to instruct a computer to follow a set of instructions to achieve something, and coding is the translation of those instructions into something the computer can understand so that the computer can create those and execute those instructions to achieve an outcome. So that's kind of how we look at it in a very sort of 50,000 foot, come join us and understand that this is not something scary. It's something that you can intuitively do if you want to put your mind to it and learn.
Yeah, and taking that a step further from what Koma said, in terms of coding. Now, when you get to the coding part, giving the computer the instructions to to execute what you want it to do. In terms of data science, what you're doing, in fact, is you're combining knowledge of mathematics, statistics, different machine learning algorithms, and then what you're doing is you're taking the knowledge of those things and you're translating that into computer code, and then you're giving those instructions to the computer to then execute those instructions. So, I mean, really what we are doing as data scientists is that we are using a programming language like Python and different libraries within Python, like pandas or scikit-learn or something like that. That's like a machine learning library. We're using those tools that are programmed inside of this particular language to kind of be like a big calculator and process large amounts of data. I mean, a program like Python, which runs pretty lean, can process a lot more data than a program like Excel or things like that. So, Robbie, you have anything to add?
I have to agree with Bodhi. I guess from my experience of working with both engineers and data scientists, it seems like data engineering often focuses on actually building the products and that create the data and actually do things with the data afterwards. And then data science focuses on the analysis, building experimentation on that, and then often the outcome of the data scientists will help build or help direct the work that the engineers are doing. And I know we have some product people on the team on the call that I think will really help bridge that gap. But it really depends also on like the size of the company you're working with. Because I know, for example, Eugene, you're working in a very large company where they might be very siloed. But in many startups, data science and data engineering or any engineering really kind of gel together pretty close to each other. And then often when you're starting off, you've got a good chance to try both of those hats and like test the waters with whichever one's most similar to what you want to do.
Thanks, guys. So the second question I had is might be a little bit interrelated, but as everyone introduced themselves, especially for people new to the industry or people wanting to learn more about kind of what are the career paths within the industry, not to say that they're exclusive to one another, but some of the terms that we often hear in terms of titles are product manager, developer, and engineer. And so my next question is for Brett, Dave, and Steve, kind of to break down what those roles are and what those kind of career paths, if there's a difference, if they're not, just let us know more about that.
So I'll start. I am happy to be corrected on this by one of the members of the panel, but I had to Google the difference between engineers and developers because I had never heard that distinction made previously. And I feel as if at most of the companies I've been at, we've used
that could have just been me making up the question.
No. You're right. Because there are articles on this, which are like, here's the difference between developers and here's what an engineer is. And they are actually different things. This exists. And again, I'm pretty sure someone will be able to correct me on this. Having said that, the functionalities and the way that they were described, it seemed as if engineers, like a little bit of concerning yourself with architecture and the nuts and bolts of coding. Developer was a little bit more about understanding customer requirements or customer problems and transferring those environments. From whatever I saw about the articles, I didn't get the feeling that you would be especially well served if you wanted to be working in software, confining yourself to one or the other. Certainly any of the people whom we lean on at our company as being our most productive software people, whatever we call them, wear both hats, and they did the functions that I saw described as engineers and as developers. So again, I'm happy to be corrected on that, but I didn't come away thinking that it would make a lot of sense for anyone to specialize specifically in one or the other things. Product manager is a separate role, certainly. It's considerably broader than only thinking about the technical solutions and how they get implemented, which is what I think about software managers doing. If you're a product manager, you're talking to the customer. Hopefully you're talking to other stakeholders in the company, you're doing data analysis, you're just doing all kinds of things. That it's a much broader role. Whereas if you're a software engineer, you're mostly, for the most part, talking about solutions, sitting in front of computers doing code. So those two are different. And certainly, as you said, they interchange in that you can jump from being an engineer to a product manager or vice manager or vice versa. But I saw those as kind of like one blob of like the technical people and then a product manager, which is distinct.
Yeah, I think, product manager it's a loaded term, and if you're not careful, you get blamed for a lot of stuff that's not your fault. But if you're trying to define everything a product manager should be, I think it's more useful to define product management and then what roles you're going to do as a product manager. I see it as a spectrum between very technical skills and call it business or user human skills on the other end. There are very technical product managers for, in technical fields that are going to maybe be hands-on doing coding and stuff like that. And then on the other side, like when I was at JP Morgan, I didn't code anything, but I managed teams that were doing the coding, and it's sort of project management and things of that sort. I think one of the key aspects of a product manager is management of people, which some people are good at and some aren't. I worked on an interesting project at Gale, who's an academic publisher, and we developed a digital humanities platform. So this is bringing natural language processing tools into the humanities. And one of the challenges that libraries faced in training students was how to manage people, because they weren't going to be able to handle all the technology on their own. When you're used to writing, book reviews and analysis of literature, and then suddenly you're doing technology development. So anyway, the product manager role I see as a spectrum between the human and the technical. And you can always learn new code. You can always learn more about different businesses, be it finance or medicine or whatever it is you might be. And you can change those over your career as well. And that's why I find product management interesting. I mean, I started my career at JP Morgan developing a communications platform, basically linking all our clients around the world to all of our branches, kind of a glorified ATM. And now I'm down here in Mexico developing software, but also got into medical supplies and working with professionals in that field. So you're always translating between different disciplines, which I find very interesting because it's just a continual learning curve that I'm climbing.
Yeah, I won't say too much more past that, but I'll echo what Dave and Brett both said. I find that product managers and business analysts, I guess the one thing that I will mention in addition is basically I find that they generally have a broader understanding of the software development lifecycle when specifically dealing with software or data science. So, having a background like on a QA team or on a development team prior to moving to one of those roles is kind of like you already have an extra, step in, your foot in the door when looking for those roles because you have an understanding top to bottom of, what the product is or what the job you're doing is going to be. So you have a leg up on everybody else.
Awesome. Thanks. You guys are so good at segueing into my next questions because we're kind of talking about the roles and responsibilities. And my next question is about kind of the most important skills and what you look for in a team member or a potential employee in your group. And if you're looking both early career, what are kind of the fundamental building blocks you're looking for in that candidate? And then also, what do you think are the most important things that distinguish someone as they kind of move out of maybe a more technical role into, not that a leadership role can't be technical, but into more of a leadership role within the tech space? So directing this one at Bree, Dave, and Rob. And anyone else who wants to chime in, of course. But
Yeah, I think one of the most important skills that I'm looking across the board for anyone in the tech space is this willingness to learn and a willingness to adapt, especially when I'm looking at what technologies you might have experience with. They might not align with what exactly I have listed out on my job board. And it's really more important for you to be able to articulate, like, I learned Java or Node from scratch, and then I was able to implement that. That to me showcases a really strong skill that kind of demonstrates that you'll be able to succeed in if I throw you on a project versus someone who's only been working with one technology for a really long time. They may be an expert, but when we have to pivot and move and navigate to bring in a new solution, that person's gonna struggle to embrace a new technology that might transform the way we do business. And in early career candidates, I think I definitely look for a confidence in whichever language you're bringing to the table, whether that be Java or Node, making sure that, you know, when you show up at the interview, even if you don't feel this way, because I know when I went on interviews, like, I didn't feel this way, that you can be like, yep, I'm going to solve whatever algorithm challenge, or usually there's a lot of like hands-on skills that you're doing if you're applying for a software engineering role. And there's nothing worse than hearing like, oh, my Python's rusty. Well, you're here for this interview, like, own it, be confident, and be like, yes, I'm ready to nail and walk through, you know, the algorithm that I'm writing. And then conversely, when I'm looking for more experienced in management and leadership roles, I look for someone who can articulate why they chose the piece of technology. Whether or not it's because our team has a very experienced set of engineers who understand this and it fit our use case and our budget. Those are all totally acceptable, you know, reasons on why you might stick with a more outdated technology. But when you come to the table like, oh, the team just chose that, that to me lacks the importance of being able to identify a solution and figure out whether or not it's the right strategy that you need to implement in your solutions, which is really important as you move up, right? You're no longer just implementing, you're starting to architect and bring to life an idea that is very white space and nuanced. And you have to be able to pull in the pieces and parts and understand why we're building something the way that we're building it. That was a really long answer.
That's good.
I'll pick it up, let's say, from the perspective of a product manager, which is that usually what we're looking for, like I will use Brett's framework of the spectrum across what it is that product is. And he's right that it's extremely diverse. And so we tend to have product managers in our org who have come from a few different parts of the business. So as I say, I came over from being a data analyst. We have software engineers who have come over. We have UX design people who have come over and become product managers. There are like a lot of options. And I think that is, again, because of what Brett said, which is that product draws on a lot of different skills and you can build off of any of those different bases, software knowledge of the business and customer viability, or say UX, and that you can build off of all those things and probably other things as well to become a useful product manager, just so long as you're willing to build up the other areas in which you might not have had as much experience. So to sort of take that point of Breeze, we are also looking for people who are flexible, who have developed their own skills on their own time, and who are like open about what it is that they don't know and willing to learn it. I've never been a developer or engineer of any kind. I don't code except for like data coding stuff, which doesn't really count, like SQL. And yet I feel comfortable managing a team of engineers simply because I'm willing to say like, okay, guys, I don't know as much about the technical solutions. Here's what I'm seeing from the market, and here's what I'm seeing from my own analysis. So you guys bring me your expertise. We'll put it together. We'll figure out a solution. So long as you're willing to do that, I think you can start from one of those bases of experience and then go from there and figure it out as you go along. And companies will understand that.
Yeah, and just to really double down on what David and Bree said, it kind of struck me that I think when we're introducing ourselves that I think over half of us didn't start off in the careers that we are currently doing. So I think something that's really useful in tech is the ability to like an eagerness to really learn new skills and be self-driven and constantly learning your entire life. That is intimidating as you get older, and it seems to never end, but it is very rewarding in its own way too. And as you'll see how so many people here have jumped from one career to something even more exciting and something more rewarding as they progressed. And then kind of just as a bias from data science standpoint versus engineering, well, I think both. I think both one of the most important skills that is often underrated is communication. I've seen amazing engineers that quite happily will only work on their own, and they'll be, you know, at a certain level for the rest of their life. But I've also seen some, myself included, probably not as good engineers getting on well just because of the ability to try and communicate with other team members, both upwards and laterally as well. So both things I think you can practice even without being in a real job. And I think the continuous learning, I think we'll get to even a bit better in a further question.
And I'd just like to add one thing. I mean, the better companies I've worked with always hired just good athletes, if you will, people that had something to contribute out of the gate, but also were capable of learning something down the road. So you want to be able to show an employer that you've got something to contribute day one, but 6 months, 12 months, 24 months down the road, you're going to be able to adjust to the next thing. And that's really important. And it involves communication too, because you have to know what you're supposed to adjust to. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not good at receiving or delivering messages, it's really tough to figure out where you're supposed to go.
Really. So if you are starting out and you know nothing about coding, or you know very little, what are the best ways, because so many of you guys kind of seem like you've self-taught, but you've used so many different schools. I guess, how do you identify a good path for yourself to learn coding and data science skills? You know, if you're coming at it with very little background and experience. I know, Koma, you spoke to this a little bit. I'm also love to hear from Mallory, who came from marketing, and Margot as well, who you said you totally self-taught yourself. So interested to hear about that.
So shameless plug, www.codeacademy.com. So, I mean, we have a lot of free stuff because we know that we don't want to create a barrier to people learning. And I think the first and most important thing, especially for our learner community, is just getting into it and deciding that, hey, this is something that I'd like to try, and doing it in a way where you set aside maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour each day, because just like rugby, if you don't practice it, you're not going to get better at it. And it's something that you have to dedicate time to. So I think, I mean, part of the reason why I thought it was a compelling reason to leave Morgan Stanley and go to a startup, because I really believed in the mission of Code Academy, which is bringing instruction to learners. And we have, every Friday, we get a learner story about somebody who basically tells us how learning how to code, learning programming, learning something on our platform is able to change their life for the better. And I think that if you just take that first step, whether it's with Code Academy, whether it's with free content on the web somewhere else, whether you save up your pennies in the cookie jar and you go to a boot camp, just committing to it and deciding that you want to learn it, and it's not going to be easy. There's going to be times where you're going to get stuck and you're going to have to lean on a community of friends or maybe community on the platform. It's something where you really just need to sort of go after it and recognize that there's always help out there. It's a community, especially, again, just not shameless plug, but Code Academy, where we have forums where somebody can say, I'm having a real problem with this, or can you look at my code and tell me what I'm doing wrong? And somebody come along and say, oh, you missed a curly brace here, or oh, you missed a semicolon there, or oh, you didn't define this function, and they learn from each other. So I think for somebody who might feel like they're intimidated, there's a lot of free ways to try it out. I mean, there's also freecodecamp.com that's explored, it's moved from web development into data science. Not that I'm plugging a competitor, but there I am. But I just think that there's so many things out there that the first step is just taking that first step and recognize that, like a lot of other people said, it's a journey. You're always learning. You know, I myself take our own curriculum, so I'm always learning. It's a consistent process where you just have to adopt the mentality that there's always something new to learn, and it's not scary once you get started and just commit and push through. Like the first day you went to rugby training, probably didn't know how to pass a ball, probably didn't know how to tackle, and you kept at it, and then you became a rugby player and you were able to do it. So it's the same type of thing, it's just a different set of muscles.
I'll jump in off of that. I completely agree, and I think one thing that, looking back on my own experience transitioning from marketing into technology, is I wish that I had taken more time to take advantage of free resources before I started a boot camp. I started a boot camp with zero coding knowledge, and I really chalk up my success to the fact that I'm just a really good traditional learning student. I do very well in those types of settings. But I know that I went through a boot camp program with folks who didn't do as well, because they I think there is a lot of knee-jerk reaction that boot camps can be this, like a quick solve for, changing a career and starting this new life with a great salary. And I think that that is not necessarily the case for everyone. And so I think that I would, I do get a lot of folks who reach out to me who are interested in boot camps. And my biggest number one piece of advice is to do some free online resources. Code on your own for 6 months or a year before you commit, lots of money to a boot camp program, to make sure that it's something that you enjoy and something that, you are kind of good at. Even if you're not good at the beginning, it's important that you can come to, you can sit down to code and enjoy the process, because you really are making a shift in a lot of things. So I totally agree, Koma. There are so many amazing online free resources, and so take advantage of those.
Yeah, so I can just pile onto that same thing. I actually, and a shout out to Code Academy, I am certain that I started with Code Academy back like 6 years ago when I was first trying to figure out how to program. And I wanted to also mention the place that I went, which is called the Recurse Center. And so it's not a traditional boot camp because there is no curriculum. So it is aimed at people who are really self-directed learners, and they want you to know that you like programming before you apply. And so there is a certain amount of pre-work that's definitely required, but as Mallory kind of mentioned, that is regardless of where you want to go to learn, it's super useful to figure out if it's actually something you want to do. And fortunately, there's so many resources on the internet that it's pretty easy to find them, and then you can take that time yourself and figure out if it's the direction you want to go. Yeah, and the Recurse Center is also just like a really great community. So I don't know, if people had more questions about that, I can definitely talk more to that maybe offline later.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to mention quickly that a great free resource available is actually a lot of bootcamp programs offer like their pre-boot camp work for free. So for the Flatiron School, when I applied for the Flatiron, I think I got like a 15 to 20 hour guided online course that was completely free, just because I was interested in attending the Flatiron School. And I know that a lot of other boot camps offer that. So if you kind of want to game the system, apply and express interest in some of those boot camps, and they will throw resources at you because they want to accept as many people as possible, but they also want to make sure that you are ready to go through the boot camp and ready to be successful. So they're just going to throw a lot of great stuff at you.
Yeah. Awesome. Maybe we can, as a follow-up, send out some resources of these all these great organizations. I think we've touched on this a bit, and we're starting to run low on time. But I just want to throw this out quickly to all of those who are maybe not coming. It sounds like the majority of you guys have shared your stories did have a little bit of experience almost before you rolled straight into tech. Not all of you, and I guess what are the kind of, in terms of, you don't necessarily, if you've been out of school for a couple of years and you have had some professional success, let's say you want to shift gears into tech. I guess, how would you market your experience in a role outside of coding, outside of kind of that technical area, to make yourself seem valuable in a kind of tech workspace? So whether you're coming from a pure finance or marketing or whatever kind of non-tech background, how do you kind of show and market those skills to a tech company? So I originally had Jean, Mallory, Brett, but anyone who wants to kind of comment on that, just because we kind of overlapped a bit, that'd be great.
Well, I think there's so many tech courses you could go take. Like if you're more of the business side person, go learn to code so you can have some appreciation for what that entails, how to write a function or debug or just simple stuff. Like you need to understand the day in the life of the guy who might be doing the coding, even if it's not you. So there's always value there. And I would say that goes to the technologist too. You should understand the business sector that you're working in, so you can know where these requirements are coming from. But anyway, on the business side, I would say, yeah, learn to do some coding. Just pick something and, write a little application that just so you can appreciate what the other side is going through.
Yeah, just to to echo what Brett said. I mean, for me, like I am a huge advocate of doing your own projects. Have your own projects that you've done. Once you've learned to code or in the process of learning how to code, because again, it teaches you, like, do I like doing this? Like, am I going to take my own free time to sit down and do this project, and am I going to enjoy doing it? Because if you think it takes you a while to do a little project at home, wait till you get into a actual production environment and you have to churn out like actual production code and production tools. It's going to be a grind. But also, like, in terms of breaking into the industry as well, in terms of going into an interview, having not that much experience, like in a technical or a role like that, having something to show them that you've done, like, this is a project that I did, it does X, Y, and Z. Here, let me show you this thing that I've done. I think that is very effective. That is a very effective way to be able to prove that that you've been able to teach yourself how to do these things. Again, like that, like what Brianna was saying before, like they really value that scrappiness. They don't want people who just want to silo themselves, into doing one thing or another. They want people who can go out there and get things done by themselves. So that's also something like very valuable. Even like doing something like, doing your own projects, starting a blog on Medium or something like that can be something like, pretty helpful. But yeah, I mean, I would say like that is one good way to be able to showcase, your skills. It's just to do your own projects, outside of, learning how to code, and then, just really kind of get into that.
All right, maybe one more just pre-question and answer scripted question, and then we'll open it up for everyone to kind of share their thoughts or ask specific questions to different members of the panel. But I guess I would be interested to know, I think most industries, we've had a lot of disruption from COVID, and I think, I guess someone outside of tech, you think, oh, tech's definitely one that, is, maybe riding a positive wave. But I'm curious to see, what's the job market like today versus prior times? Has it been affected by COVID? Is it better than ever? So anyone who wants to comment, maybe Margot, Bree, and Steve start. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll take it just first, because recently I actually was doing the hiring for a role in my team, and also I'm currently interviewing other places for other roles. So I'd say the market has changed. There are a lot of high quality engineers that do not have jobs right now. I interviewed probably 25 candidates for a business analyst role, and the experiences ranged from fresh out of college to like, 20 years of industry experience in finance and in technology. And so it's really hard to say no to somebody who is, I just got off a contract in March and then COVID hit and then I don't have a job. So that's tough. So the market has definitely changed. In terms of, I guess, going out and interviewing versus with the people in the market are like, obviously, like there's no face-to-face interviews. Like I had a couple Zoom interviews. Those are a little bit more difficult. I think that you kind of have to like learn how to play up your strengths more. You can't if you're, in front of a camera, it's hard to show your personality maybe. So, you really got to work hard on that. Yeah, I don't know, Margot or Bree wants to add anything.
I definitely resonate with being on the other side of interviewing candidates and being like, are you still paying attention to me? Because that connection and that the in-person connection just isn't there anymore. So little things like continuing to nod your head and like, yes, I'm engaging with you. And on facilitating interviews, I think the process for us has been drawn out, or not technically Capital One. We were trying to keep it relatively the same, but I've heard a lot of my peers from Women Who Code that they've gone through more interview sessions just because in order for me to make sure that you're a good fit, like I need more face time and need to continue to get to know you a little bit better. And I think we're all just adjusting to, especially when I'm doing my technical interviews, going from being able to sit down and whiteboard or sit down and pen to paper and watch you solve out your algorithms to figuring out how to facilitate that via different technologies online. So your interviewers might also be a little clunky as we figure out how to navigate interviewing in a digital world.
And I can just speak a little more to like what it's like to look for a job right now. I just went through like a 6-week long job search before I ended up with my current position. Yeah, definitely what you all have said, conveying your personality over Zoom is always a challenge. But I have noticed, my experience was that the tech industry as a whole, it feels like there's a big shift. There's like kind of all of the like ride sharing, for example, let's say, has been impacted and there are a lot of layoffs and those people are looking for new jobs, but like ed tech is going bananas because people want to like educate their kids at home. And so there are definitely opportunities, and I think that there's more optimism in tech than there is in a lot of other industries. And so it's not every company is doing well, but there are some that have benefited even from COVID. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the position I ended up getting is a remote position, but it wasn't listed as remote. I think a lot of companies are reassessing their position on remote work. And so I would say don't rule out a company just because it's in a city that you don't ever want to move to. And it's not going to work every time, but there's a chance that if you reach out, if you're really excited about an opportunity and you reach out, they might be open to remote work, even if they weren't previously. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was that as hard as it is for an interviewer to get a sense of your personality, it's even maybe harder, I think, for you to get a sense of what working at the company is going to be like. And so I did all my interviews, but at the places that I was most interested in and where I received offers, I asked to speak to more people on the team. And I ended up scheduling like way more, not really interviews, but like conversations so that I could actually meet the people that I was going to work with and get a sense of what that was going to feel like. And I think that was really important. So I recommend that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point on getting a sense of your employer's ability to manage you remotely, because it's just a reality right now. Even if you went to the office today, you could be told to go home tomorrow. My last job up in Silicon Valley, like management insisted everyone come to the office, and because they were bad managers, basically. And I think it's important to understand if management is going to be able to just trust you if they give you a job to get it done. I mean, there's a feature, if any of you guys have done contract work on WeWork, it basically takes a screenshot every 10 minutes. That's not a whole lot of trust. Now, sometimes it's training wheels. We did a contract like that down here where they wanted that control, if you will, in place. But eventually they're like, yeah, just tell us your log, every week. But you need to get that sense of how they're going to work with you remotely, because not everyone's good at it. Some people feel they need to stand over your shoulder. And I don't think in this COVID environment that works. So, how you build that rapport and everything, I think is important.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our panelists. I just want to Jean, I don't know if we can open it up for everyone who's on the call to, ask whatever question you want. You can direct it to everyone or direct it to one person. So please chime in if you have any questions, comments, want to share something yourself as well.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's open it up to any of the other participants who are here and have some questions that may not have been touched on.
Should we raise our hands digitally or just speak up?
Why don't you just speak up, because I don't know how to raise my hand digitally. So.
Oh, you can go to participants, click participants and raise hand, and you should be able to see a hand. Do you see that? As a moderator, and anybody else should be able to see a raise.
That's okay. Well, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, sorry.
I think there's a few enough of us that will work it out.
Okay, yeah, don't worry about it. There you go. Kama did it.
I see Kama raising her. Okay, now
first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody so much. That was so insightful and helpful. Like all the questions that I had prepared, pretty much, I think a good deal of it was really covered. Well, first of all, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Cameron Fitz. I actually used to work for Play Rugby as an AmeriCorps service member. And so I've never played rugby, but I love the crowd. I miss all the drinking that went on all the time. It's been, my tolerance level must be so low, but I just loved being part of that community of like just constantly pushing yourself and repetition and just all the positive values. And that's kind of what carried me through to try to pursue coding. And so I am starting to look for jobs, and it's just been like very daunting to sort of pursue this, especially during COVID, but just in general, like pivoting from something that is nonprofit, not tech, to the tech industry has been really scary. So I'm really happy this is happening. This is just wonderful. Thank you so much. And I guess I would follow up with sort of like, I really like the sort of what you, Margot and Brett, you guys are starting to talk a little bit more about like the culture and sort of the red flags that might be raised, and what is it actually like to work with people, and how you need to kind of suss it out by just through video calls, and that's kind of challenging. I just wanted to hear from other people about just like, maybe in general, it doesn't have to be like COVID specific, but like, how do you look for a culture that is inclusive, truly inclusive? It's not just like, oh, we have these programs and like we just, it's all talk. They don't really mean it. How do you find people who really care about diversity, women, LGBTQ communities, like things that matter to me? I want to find those people. I'm really curious about that, how you guys would just as industry veterans like know how to look for those kinds of communities. And also, how do you keep up with like all the changes in the tech news? Because you guys all said it's so important to keep on learning throughout your whole life, right? I think that's what pretty much everybody said. Bree, David, Rob, they all said that. I want to know, as someone who has a little bit more experience, just a little bit, like how do you keep on learning? What are your resources? Sorry, that was a long question.
Jump in, guys.
I know one of the things that I was looking for when trying to find roles is for people to, if they say like, oh, we support women in tech, we support Blacks in tech, I ask for, give me concrete examples. Like what initiatives have you done? What is their experience like? And really trying to get my interviewer to suss out like a concrete like experience outside of just saying like, oh, we have a business resource group. Cool. What does that business resource group do? And then talking with other associates who might identify in ways that I identify, and have similar, experiences, and really trying to hear from them, what they're looking for. You kind of have to have a little BS meter, right? But that's just with anywhere you go, because at the end of the day, the people that we usually do interviews and share interviews with are folks that you hope will say good things about your company and your organization. But I think when you can concretely share some examples of what you're looking for, and be aware of even just a little bit of the red flags when people are interviewing with you. Like, there are certain things that like people will say, and I can't come up with an example right now, and I'm like, that's kind of opposite of what you just shared about like empowering your female software engineers. Like, you just shared something that like your gut and what you pick up on is usually spot on.
I'm going to quickly drop in a link in the chat. It's Julia Evans, who is a fabulous female technologist. She compiled this list of questions that technologists ask in interviews, and it's huge. Like, it's way more questions than you would ever ask in a single interview, but it's really good to sort of go through and like cherry pick, like, okay, this is how you can get to the heart of the issue that you're interested in getting after. So I just dropped it in the chat.
I like that. All these questions are like really getting to that, like, give me an example.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
actually
some
use
companies have high turnover, and obviously there's things like Glassdoor. You can go check things out. It's worth asking what happened to the last person that had this job that you're interviewing for, and see how they defend it or not. But there's a lot of bad managers out there, but at the same time, you want to get a job too.
One thing I will add is there is Glassdoor. You can like kind of do a little bit of research on the company that you're looking at. Even really small companies, if you're looking at a startup or Fortune 500 company, whatever it is, I find that you can get a lot out of looking at like the makeup of like their executives. Like I've been doing some interviews recently. I look at like the executives of even the startup I'm looking at. They have a male and a female co-founder. Like, they have a diverse board. Like, they clearly have people of different backgrounds in positions of power. If that's something you care about, I think that a lot of that information is readily available. I think you got to do a little bit of homework almost on these companies you're interviewing with.
I know we were going to keep it to an hour, but we got into our Q&A a little late. John, yeah, if anyone needs to drop off, please drop off, and we'll send out a email with, some follow-up of everyone's, full names if you want to LinkedIn or ask a question later. I know some people might have to go. I see some hands up, though, now that I've learned my own new skill. John, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, can you hear me? My mic's acting up. Okay, thank you. Fantastic presentation. I'm John, as you can tell. I'm from Northeast Philadelphia Irish Rugby, Northeast Philadelphia. I just got out of a 14-week boot camp, Java full stack boot camp, and I'm in looking for jobs. It's really interesting to hear everybody's background. Everybody came from a different background. They're in different physical locations right now and different spots in their career. And you sort of touched on it, the job hunt before. Do you have any, other than just going through LinkedIn and searching for everything that says junior Java or putting a filter for entry level and just going through that way, is there any other resources that you would recommend going through other than like the Rugby Business Network, which I got an interview through this, which is an awesome resource, but anything else?
I mean, it's, again, getting that, I think that getting that first role, it's a lot of it has to do with networking. When you, when you're out there, when you're looking for these roles and you're applying and, you know, you're dropping your resume like into like some black hole somewhere that, you know, you have no idea where this resume is going to go. I mean, that's why I think it's really important to reach out to people on LinkedIn. I mean, I use LinkedIn as a resource and network, you know, for a long time. So I think it's worth, you know, reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, like, my name is John, you know, I'm looking to get into the industry. Like, you know, do you have a few minutes to talk to me about X, Y, and Z? You know, again, like I will say, like, it's an iterative process. It can take a little while, and it does take a lot of work, you know, just to get in initially. And I don't say that to discourage you. I say that just to kind of bolster you up a little bit, that it might take a little while. I mean, especially you just finished a boot camp program. I got out of a boot camp program, and it took me a little while to find my first role. So, you know, but what I will say is keep doing projects, you know, keep the, like I would say, like, keep the knife sharp, you know, because I mean, once you finish the program, you know, you have all the stuff in your head, you have all the knowledge in your head. If you don't use it, you kind of forget it. And like Bree said, when you get into that first interview, like, you know, when they ask you those questions about JavaScript, like, like how would you loop through this function, or, you know, talk to me about time complexity, you know, things like that. These are the kinds of things that you need to be able to, you know, to shine on, like, right out of the gate, you know. So, you know, again, keep doing projects. I keep saying that, but because I evangelize that, like, keep doing your own projects and, you know, post about them, you know, create a Medium account, have something for them to look at, like when you go into a project, or at least have something to talk about, something that you talk about that you did do.
So there's no secret tech posting website that you got to know to go.
Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet. I mean, I will say that, you know, my first role, the role that I have now, like, I got through networking through one of the guys with the Lions. You know.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, again, like, you know, leverage your rugby resources, but again, like, really talking to people, letting them know that you have these skills. And that you can do these things. You never know who is looking for somebody who can do what you do, you know?
And a tip about expanding your network, there are a lot of meetup groups. If you go to meetup.com, that's how Women Who Code started. And you can find anything from Java meetup groups in your area, or digital, that are all meeting digitally. And that's a great way to continue to expand your network and meet people. I know there have been a lot of members within the Women Who Code organization who've found roles, found people to fill open positions that they've had. So it's another avenue that you could look at.
Yeah, and I know, I don't know, Mike, if you're on, Mike Berger, I know you wanted to share about an opportunity on this call today. Can we just, I know, Daniel, you've had your hand up for a while, and maybe that's the last question of the night. And then roll over to Mike to talk about his opportunity. Daniel, I don't know if you want to go ahead.
Hey, so I'm an undergraduate student, and I think one issue I kind of have is that I'm really interested. Like, I'm interested in technology. Like, I like working with computers. I have a hard time trying to figure out what actually I want to do. Like, what exactly area of technology I want to go into. And I know you guys have said that, like, a lot of people switch and it's, like, pretty movable within different areas. But I was kind of wanting to ask, like, what made you decide that the area of tech that you're in is what you wanted to go in, instead of just, like, out of the broader, like, hemisphere of tech jobs in general?
That's so funny, because Bree just shot that to me as a potential question to add to the end.
I was curious myself.
I mean, for me, I know that it was kind of the blend of, you know, working with, you know, numbers, you know, mathematics, statistical data, and also, like, coding. Like, you know, before I started, you know, learning about data science, you know, working with math and statistics and things like that, that was always something that I was interested in doing. And then the learning how to code, learning Python, learning SQL, things like that, that was kind of more like a personal challenge for me. So I wanted to be able to combine these two things. Like, now that, once I learned how to, write code in Python and something like that was something that I thought was cool. I was like, oh, this is like a really cool, neat thing that I know how to do now. But it allows me to take this interest that I already had in mathematics, in statistical analysis, it allows me to take this that much further. So, I mean, that's really kind of what got me interested in becoming a data scientist and learning about data science.
Yeah, I'd say as a non-tech person, when you're coming out of school, I wouldn't overthink it too much. I think you want the person you work for too is almost as important, someone who's ready to expand your mind and support you, and they don't want to keep you at the entry level forever. That's almost more important, to make sure that you're excited about, proud of the work you'll be doing, and trust the person, especially right out of college, that you're going to be working for. Mike, would you like to share about your opportunity?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Mike Berger, played with the Lions back with Brett, that good-looking guy on the cube there. Not sure where that mustache came from. That must be a Mexico City thing. Really appreciate the opportunity to get to hear this conversation and speak a little bit about. I work at Mount Sinai here in New York City, decent-sized health system, 8 hospitals, 45,000 employees, and I run a few different data science teams. I'm a chief data analytics officer, and we're looking to spin up a couple more internships. It's harder to get full-time people. Analytics is in my company, other than people who are providing direct clinical care. Analytics is really the only place that we're expanding, and it's still pretty tough to get positions justified. But we think we've got a couple of internships that we're going to open up, and they would be 3 or 4 months, ideally full-time, but we might be open to part-time. We're looking for people with sort of the course technical skills. Boot camp ready is probably good enough. Ideally, somebody with some healthcare experience. Maybe they were a medical assistant or a tech, or not selling drugs on the corner, but any experience in big pharma is cool. That just sort of puts you up a level. But we understand we're looking for people who are pretty entry level. The idea would be, help us on a couple of projects for a few months where we can explain the problem, explain the business process we're trying to fix. In our case, this would be about sort of forecasting and valuing risk associated with patients, who's at risk, because we actually take risk on our patients, and give you a chance to learn about our business, learn what data sources we work with, how we implement analytics projects, nuances in the data, lots of munging, and then using some of our data science toolkits and tool sets, workbenches. There might get to be some predictive modeling, but not necessarily a guarantee of getting to work with uncertainty, but definitely getting to develop visualizations and sort of storytelling. So we think it's pretty, obviously we know somebody's not coming in with a ton of experience, but it might be a good way for people to get in and learn about healthcare. We're definitely one of the more growing sectors in general, albeit COVID kind of punched us in the face, as to be expected. If you're interested, I'll have Eugene post this to the people that were invited. It'll either be an email address or a actual job link to a career site. Encourage anybody who's interested to try and get their foot in the door. If you're feeling a little bit of desperate, how do I get industry experience? Remember, if you went through a boot camp and that's really all of your experience, or if you went through a undergrad or grad program, and that's all your experience, there's a whole lot of people on this globe that just have that same amount of experience, and it's really hard to differentiate. So you got to do all the things that Eugene and the team here were talking about, the networking. I love the idea of writing about things on Medium. Become an expert in something interesting, not something lame. If you can become an expert on free data, open data, but do something interesting with it, that'll really separate you from the pack. A whole lot of people applying for jobs these days, so my heart goes out for anybody going through that. So hopefully that one of these could work out for one of you guys or girls. Thanks for the time.
Oh, thank you. And I think we're going to just, because we're already a full 10 minutes over, we're going to sign off for tonight. Thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you for everyone who's attended, for sharing your Monday evening with us. Again, if you want to talk about rugby, you can always hit us up on social media, Village Lions Rugby, VLRFC, or recruitment@villagelions.org if you're interested in playing when we can finally return to a field. We'd love to have you. If you're with another club, we'd love to play you. You can also reach out as well once things reopen. And we'll, feel free, I think, to LinkedIn anyone on this panel. We'll send around an email to everyone with some of the great resources that are posted on the chat here, Mike's job opportunity, and of course everyone's name, so you can remember to LinkedIn us. Thank you all very, very much.
Last thing is that this is everything that we had here it's being recorded. So we're going to send out a link to the recording of this, so anybody who wasn't able to join us tonight can watch the recording, and then we will send out a link with everything else, like another email, like you said. So thank you so much, guys.
All right. Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.